So, hello again and welcome back to Cybersecurity in the Ancient World. This is episode number 5. When thinking of communication security, we often think of computer systems, banks, and secret services like the FBI and CIA. Yet, did you know the ancient Greeks and Romans knew everything about hiding secrets and securing confidential information too? In this series of 10 videos, we will discuss 10 examples of secret communication in the Greco-Roman world from the 8th century BCE to the 4th century CE. We will see the Spartans and Caesar go into war. But also cipher codes, invisible ink, love letters, and ultimately someone carrying his own death sentence without knowing. When and why did the Greeks and Romans use secret communication? What secrets did they hide from their enemies? We will see this and much more in this series. So welcome to Cybersecurity in the Ancient World. Episode number 5, Sieges and Spies, from Aeneas Tacticus, How to Survive Under Siege. In this 5th episode, we will take a look at Aeneas Tacticus. Aeneas Tacticus was a Greek general from the 4th century BCE. We don't know what Aeneas looked like, but it was probably a bit like this man, like a great general. Little more is known about his life than this. Yet, since 1609, Aeneas has sometimes been identified with the Arcadian general Aeneas of Stymphalos. According to Xenophon, this Aeneas of Stymphalos was fighting at the Battle of Mantinea in 362 BCE. Aeneas is one of the earliest Greek writers on the art of war, and he is credited as the first author to provide a complete guide for securing military communications. This work is known as How to Survive Under Siege and dates to about 360 BCE. According to Aelian and Polybius, Aeneas wrote a number of other treatises on the subject as well. And according to Polybius, Aeneas also described the design for a hydraulic semaphore system. So Aeneas' only extant work that has survived is How to Survive Under Siege. It deals with the best methods of defending a fortified city. An epitome of the whole was made by Cineas, who was minister of Pyrrhus, king of Epirus. And the work is chiefly valuable as it contains a large number of historical illustrations. The work How to Survive Under Siege, or On the Defense of Fortified Positions, is written about 360 BCE, as already mentioned. A date around 360 BCE makes Aeneas Tacticus' work not only the oldest known military manual in history, but also the oldest known work on secret communication, so cryptography and steganography. Chapter 31 of the work is dedicated to recommendations regarding the use of cryptographic and steganographic devices and methods during sieges. In the course of Chapter 31, Aeneas discussed 21 different methods to hide your secrets, offering us a detailed catalogue of methods for ancient communication security. A careful cataloguing of the several types of secret communication that Aeneas discusses in the work indicates that he was most familiar with simple steganographic devices for secret hidden communication, and that he preferred hidden communication over encrypted messages for his siege contacts. For example, Aeneas discusses 7 examples of steganographic messages that could be sent hidden in or under clothing, footwear, armor, jewelry, and even in a dark color. Amongst the simple suggestions are to hide a message under a breastplate, to sew it into a bridle ring, or to hide it in between layers of clothing. Aeneas also discusses how a message was once sent bound to a wound on a man's leg, and how in Epirus and Thessaly it was custom to take a dog away from home, hide a secret message in its collar, and then send it back home. A slightly more complicated method compared to these is the use of pieces of lead that could be rolled up and worn as women's earrings, and another more complicated method is the sending of messages by using a messenger without the messenger knowing about this. Before sending out a messenger, one had to insert a secret letter into the messenger's sandals. He would then send the messenger to the recipient with a non-secret letter to provide a cover for his actual hidden mission. The recipient would then reply in the same way if requested. The examples we just mentioned are invented by Aeneas or based on stories he had heard. Sometimes these stories can be identified. For example, according to Aeneas, a secret message was once sent, written on the base of a tablet, and then wax was poured over it. A second open message was subsequently written on the top film of the wax. When the tablet was delivered, the recipient, who knew or anticipated that a message was written under the wax, would scrape off the wax to read the message hidden underneath and send a reply in the same way. This example is based on Demaratus' message to the Spartans derived from Herodotus' histories. However, Aeneas did not simply follow Herodotus' earlier account. After discussing how a person in his example sent a secret message following the details of the Herodotean source, Aeneas then suggests that a message was sent back in the same way, as if it were a useful, practical way for secret communication that had actually taken place between two parties. Aeneas then adds other possibilities, as if to show that he could improve on his sources by supplementing them with ideas of his own. First, we see the possibility to write a message on the base of a boxwood tablet, and then whitewash the tablet and paint a picture over it to render the writing invisible. To make the writing visible again, the recipient had to place the tablet in water to dissolve the paint. Aeneas' second alternative was to use a hero's plaque, an image of a hero that is usually left in a shrine for the same purpose. So clearly, Aeneas Tacticus considered that his alternatives would have worked more effectively as practical steganographic devices than the original method described by Herodotus. It is possible that Aeneas Tacticus sensibly believed that sending a seemingly empty tablet in transit would have attracted too much suspicion if it fell into the wrong hands. And next to the Demaratus story, Aeneas Tacticus based another example of secret steganographic messaging on Herodotus' work. We find the story of Histiaeus, the guy we see here, marked with the arrow, who was sending a secret message to Aristagoras of Miletus. And that message, to revolt against the Persian king, was tattooed on a slave's head. This example from Herodotus fits in well with the broader theme of Aeneas' work on sieges, since here we are dealing once again with a hidden message being smuggled out of a besieged city. Unlike his reworking of Demaratus' story reported by Herodotus, however, here Aeneas' Tacticus includes names, Istiaeus and Arsagoras, and places, Miletus, that Herodotus had supplied in his version, thereby lending credibility and authority to Aeneas' own account. There were also methods invented by Aeneas. The most important one is the use of Astagali, also known as knuckle bones or talons bones, to send messages. As becomes clear from Aeneas' description, one could pierce 24 holes into an astragalus to represent the 24 letters of the ancient Greek alphabet. Whenever someone wanted to communicate a message by using Astagali, the person had to draw a thread through its holes. In other words, he would sew a message through the astragalus, hereby transposing or changing the order of letters. And this gives us a simple transposition cipher. Here we see a simplified version of Aeneas' Astagali method. The unthreading obviously took place in the reverse order, since the decoding necessarily started by unthreading at the end. Consequently, all the letters of the message appeared in the reverse order, and therefore, to understand the intended message properly, the recipient had to turn the letters back into their normal order. So here we have double encryption. Because of its size, a message sent using Astagalus could not have been much longer than 1 or 2 words or a very short sentence. In fact, it is possible that abbreviations were used. The message "Enemy attacks at dawn" could have been abbreviated to the letters EAAD. Yet still, the use of such a small object must have made the use of Astagali for this form of secret messaging very time-consuming and very difficult in practice. One would easily end up with a ball of thread whereby it was no longer possible to find the correct holes, making the use of the Astagali method rather troublesome for the sender and even more so for the receiver. Therefore, it is questionable whether the method has functioned well. It seems very plausible that Aeneas found out for himself that using the Astagali for his secret communication was very laborious, since he described the method not only as the most secret, but also the most difficult one. So, since the method was rather complicated and very time-consuming, Aeneas Tacticus accordingly suggests 2 simpler variations. Instead of using a Astagalus, one could use a rectangular piece of wood, as we see here, or one could use a wooden disc and pierce 24 holes in it, as in the bone Astagalus. When using the disc, one had to prick 1 or 2 holes into the center of the disc too. Whenever a letter occurred twice in a row, one had to pull the thread through one of the holes in the center of the disc in between the 2 other letters. So we've come to the end. Let us summarize and conclude. Last time we saw Plutarch and Gellius discussing the Spartans' Gitala. We cannot say with certainty how much of their stories are true, and if the Spartans ever used Scipioli for sending secret messages. However, Plutarch and Gellius do provide us with the earliest known theoretical transposition cipher in history, a cipher that was used for later communication systems used up to modern day. The same applies to Aeneas Tacticus methods to hide messages during sieges. Some of the methods Aeneas describes are very simple, like hiding a letter under clothing or in a bag, and others are more complicated, culminating in the use of the Astagali. We cannot know how many of these methods were actually used in Greek warfare. Yet, the methods Aeneas described must have been useful during sieges, at least theoretically. And like with the Spartan Scipioli, we see Aeneas systems develop throughout the ages into more modern systems, especially the transposition ciphers that we see both in the Scipioli method and in Aeneas Astagali. Thank you again for watching. What do you think of this episode? Do you want to know more about Aeneas Tacticus? Or do you want to share anything else? Please feel free to contact me for any comments, suggestions, etc. And do you want to know more about secret communication in ancient Greece and Rome? Then stay tuned for our next episode on ancient Greek fire signaling. Here we will take another look at Aeneas' work and take a look at the work of Polybius. So, see you next time. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Goodbye.